All right, here we go. So yesterday we were smack in the middle of learning about heating up either liquid, I shouldn't say heating up, either keeping a liquid dish that is already hot on top of a pot that's hot, or heating up a dry cooked, fully cooked food on top of a pot that's already hot. Everybody agrees you could do both of those on top of a pot that's off the fire, right? There's no bishul achar bishul b'yavesh. And something moist, something wet, if it's still hot, also no bishul achar bishul. Not only that, but we said that the Taz holds that even if it's not fully cooked, if it's on top of a pot that's off the fire, it's not going to be considered cooking. That was a Sa'ad Chiddush. Yeah.
What's the reason we put not fully cooked on top of the pot? It's only warm. It doesn't do anything.
Exactly. It's not going to help you cook it according to the Taz, but you at least are going to have it hot. It's already cooked K'maychel ben Drusoi. So it's good enough for you, and at least it's going to be hot.
If it's cooked, food is not cooked for me. I'm not touching it.
Okay, but some people like rare meat and soft-boiled eggs and stuff like that.
Okay.
So why when we refuse, so we worry about the green onion out of the fire?
Oh, food could definitely cook off the fire. That's the whole concept of a Kli Rishon. Food can cook in a Kli Rishon for sure, off the fire. Kli Sheni also maybe. But if it's not in the pot, it's on top of the pot, and the pot is off the fire, the Taz says the bottom pot is not going to have enough heat. I'm saying even a Kli Rishon, which you would think it's Kli Rishon, no. Even a Kli Rishon, if it's off the fire, and you put on top of it something else that's already hot, and it's not fully cooked, even so, the bottom one is not going to be able to cook it. It's gonna allow it to remain hot for longer.
But we got worried that it's cooked well.
That's if you put it in the Kli Rishon.
But it's out of the fire.
Doesn't make a difference. A Kli Rishon off the fire can cook. Here we're talking about this is the Kli Rishon, and you're putting another Kli on top of it. You're not putting the food in it. If you put the food in it, you're in trouble. We're talking about it's in a separate pot. They're both off the fire. This one is fully cooked and hot. This one is not fully cooked and hot. And you're putting one pot on top of the other, like that.
So you're going to have a Kli Sheni?
No, they're both Kli Rishon. This you took this off this fire. You took those off this fire.
Yeah.
You took it off the fire. You put it onto the counter. Here it is on the counter. And you're putting this on this. You might think maybe the heat is going to go up and cook it. The Taz says, no. It's going to keep it hot for longer, but it's not going to cook it. Now, if you would open the lid and you would pour it in, that's big trouble. You understand? That's inside a Kli Rishon. This is on a Kli Rishon. It's not the same.
So
now, I want to explain. If it would be cold, and you put it on here and it heats up, that's called cooking. If it's not fully cooked or if it's a liquid. But if it's already hot, I'm sorry?
It's considered cooking?
Yeah, either if it's not fully cooked or even if it's fully cooked, if it's liquid and it's cold and you heat it up, that's cooking even if it's not in it, even if it's on it. You understand? Because to bring from cold to hot, for liquids is for sure cooking, and even for something dry, if it's not fully cooked, that's considered the beginning of cooking. But if it's already hot and you're just keeping it hot, not so much. One second. You understand?
Because I know for it's a little bit different. You can still put cold food in a plate. So
Not fully. Not if it's not fully cooked.
no, we don't have the issue with that not fully cooked.
Yes, you do.
Usually, in my house,
Oh yeah, usually it's fully cooked. I understand. in your house. But I'm saying if something is not fully cooked, then you have a problem. And even if it's fully cooked, if it's liquid,
But I try to understand why do you think also in the old time, why do you try to make food that's not fully cooked? What is the reason for this?
maybe they wanted it to be fresh. If it's not fully cooked when Shabbos comes in, so by the time you come back from shul an hour later, it'll be ready. Perfect, just perfect.
This is what
Maybe, I don't know.
I'm talking about fully cooked versus
Anyway, some people like food that is not fully cooked. Rare meat. Some people like a soft boiled egg. They like when it's liquid. You know what I mean? It's everybody has their style. Yes.
I don't think you know about where they take the okay to put pot on top of the pot, not on the fire. It's like you're taking the Kli Rishon for the hot water and you pour it in the Kli Rishon and you're allowed to drink it hot, put tea, whatever you want. So I think they take this halakha from that halakha to put it on top.
That's Kli Rishon. This is Kli Rishon.
But Kli Rishon, they put Kli Rishon on top of the Kli Rishon.
No, they're both Kli Rishon. That's what I'm saying. They're both Kli Rishon. You had them both on the fire, and now you're putting one on top of the other to keep it hot. That's all.
You couldn't leave it over there to keep it up if it's hot over there.
Maybe Shabbat came in and you turned that fire off. You didn't want to waste money.
So this off.
Maybe. I don't know why. Okay. So that was all clear.
Yes.
What if the bottom pot was on the fire and you want to put it on top of the pot that's on the fire? So in Seif Zayin, where the Machaber is talking about a liquid dish that is still hot, he brings two opinions. Some say it's allowed, and some say it's not allowed. Which opinion does he bring first? Let me just look that up. Allowed is the first opinion.
We learned that about 1 month ago.
We learned the Rishon Gimel, yeah. Yeah, first opinion says allowed. Thank you. Second opinion is not allowed. Comes the Seif Ches and says, if you want to put a dry food on top of a pot, fully cooked dry food, off the fire is okay. On the fire, machloket. First opinion says okay. Second opinion says not okay.
Which one is okay?
The first opinion.
What's opinion? Who is
What's his name? I don't know his name.
Okay.
I think it's brought in the Rabbeinu Yerucham. Rabbeinu Yerucham brings both opinions. He doesn't say their name. Rabbeinu Yerucham was a student of the Rosh. One says okay, one says not okay. And by the way, what's the basis of their argument? What's the svarat hamachloket? What's the basis of their argument? Whether you can put it on top of a pot that's on the fire or not. Off the fire, yes. So that's the question. Is it mechzei kemavashal? Does it appear like you're cooking when you put it on top of a pot? Doesn't seem to be the normal way to cook, but nevertheless, the opinion that says it's forbidden says that it still looks like cooking. Now, of course, if you would keep the conditions of Chazara and you would have taken it from another fire and you had it in your hands the whole time and you had in mind to put it back, like everything we learned in Reish Nun Gimel, all the conditions of Chazara, of course you could put it on top of a pot. That's not less than putting it on a blech.
You can put it in a blech too, Rabbi, no?
I understand that. Even if there is no blech underneath.
And no place.
One second, even if there is no blech underneath, the pot on the bottom becomes like a blech because it interrupts. It makes a hefsek, makes an interruption between the fire and the pot on the top. But that's if you keep the conditions. If you don't keep the conditions, machloket. Some say you cannot because it looks like cooking. Yes.
You're allowed to take the cover of the pot and turn it on the other side so it will sit good?
I think so. If the bottom one is fully cooked. If it's not fully cooked, it's a problem because once you uncover it, you cannot cover it again.
Oh, okay. So you must be cooked.
Fully cooked, yeah.
So you have to take a chance.
No chances. Oh, yeah, you could open it on the chance, but you can't close it once it's open.
Say again?
If it's not fully cooked, the second you take it off, you can't put it down. I'm talking about fully cooked.
No, well, what's the opinion if you open?
Sorry?
Fully cooked or just the concept to flip
The concept to flip the cover. So I'm saying if it's fully cooked, yes.
But you shouldn't do it while it's on the fire.
Even on the fire. Fully cooked you can do.
You take the other part from another fire, it's okay. You keep the chazara.
The liquid can fall from the cover, fall into the pot. So you try to avoid
Still hot.
picking up all.
Still hot. What does that mean? You can pour from something on the fire. You can pour in if you keep the conditions. So why not from the thing itself? It's still hot. It's on the fire. It's in your hands. All the conditions are there.
Pick up the cover and hold the pot.
You don't have to hold the pot. The pot you're keeping on the blech. You keep the pot on the blech. This is the pot. This is the cover. He's saying you just want to flip the cover because the cover, the way it is, the pot's not going to sit in it. So you flip it. All the conditions are there. It's in your hands. It's still hot. Now there's no that water has all the conditions of chazal.
Like even the way you're holding it, just to be in the ways that if you're going to lose it, it's going to fall. Just to put your hands on it.
No, that's if you're taking it off the fire. Here you're keeping the bottom pot on the fire. It's still on the fire. You don't have to put your hands on it. Of course not. Your hands on it is if you take it off the fire.
The formula not to pick up the lid while the pot is on the fire. You always try to avoid if you want to look, don't pick up the lid while it's still on the fire.
That's if it may not be fully cooked. If it may not be fully cooked, then once you pick it up, you're in trouble. Because then you couldn't put it back. Fully cooked? I don't know. Lo shamati. I've heard of a lot of chumras, but I didn't hear that one. So, I don't know.
So it's better to put a cover.
Why not?
Well, what happens if the liquid in the lid is not just so as well anymore?
It is. If it's not, then you have a
You
problem.
cannot put it back. So
You can't put the.
It cannot be not because it's in the pot
You
in the
can't make
fire.
it fall back down.
Once you take it out,
The steam is coming out.
start cooling off.
No. You
That's
just
if
leave
you
it.
left it off for a few minutes. If you're serving soup,
Right.
and by the time you're finished, okay, fine. So then you dry it off.
Try it off. Right.
Yeah. I mean, whatever. There's different opinions even about that. If it's a small amount, maybe it's not important. Whatever, but it can't hurt to dry it off. But anyway, there are more paskins, by the way, that if it's still hot, even if it's not yet tzaleres boy, it's still in bishul achar bishul by lach. So that's he would say that it's still considered hot, even if it's not yet tzaleres boy, as long as it's hot enough to serve to guests.
Because it's so little bit and we don't need that, so we don't pay attention.
That's also an argument.
Now,
Anyway,
it's better to put a cover before Shabbat on the right way, so you can not.
whatever. It's better to learn, and then you know what's better.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay, my friends. Absolutely dry. Look at the last line. You should know if it's liquid, you're in trouble. So he's talking about only dry. You understand? That last line explains that he's talking about only dry until now. Okay, so question is, why in Seif Zayin does he bring two opinions and he doesn't paskin? And in Sif Ches, he says V'risha Nir Eker that it's okay, that you're allowed to put something on top of the pot that's on the fire. And by the way, in Siman Reish Nun Gimel, when he talks about the conditions of Chazorah, he says you can put something on a mechan, on a hot water pot, without the conditions of Chazorah. So clearly he's paskening like the first opinion in Sif Ches. So why in Sif Zayin does he not say what to do? Leaves it open. So yesterday we said, the Vilna Gaon says that it's obvious. He brings the two opinions in Sif Zayin, the same two opinions in Sif Ches, And then he says, Allah is like the first one, and you're supposed to realize that that's going back on Siv Zayin as well. That's very simple, finished. The Magen Avram doesn't like that answer. The Magen Avram says, in Siv Zayin, he doesn't paskin, and maybe, by the way, I didn't say this before, but maybe he does even paskin, like the strict opinion. Because when you have two opinions, yesh v'yesh, usually Allah is like the second one. So he says yesh v'yesh, maybe he's paskening l'chumra. So what's the difference between Siv Zayin and Sivcha? It's very simple, he says. In Siv Zayin, he's talking about liquid food that's still hot. Sivchas, he's talking about dry food that's fully cooked. Sorry?
They start with the dry, but they finish with the liquid and say,
No. Sivchas, he's telling you, what I just finished telling you does not apply if it's liquid. So, the point is that the Magen Avram says the Mechaber is worried if you're going to put something liquid on the fire, on a pot that's on the fire, what if you won't be so careful and you'll do it if it's not fully hot, when it cooled down already? He's nervous about it, doesn't want you to do it. When it's off the fire, you still can't do it if it's cold. But there, what are the chances? It's going to get hot, it's off the fire already. But if it's on the fire and you're going to let a person put back, besides the issue of Mesik and Mavashal, which is the reason why there's the first opinion, the second opinion, right? The second opinion says you can't do it because Mesik and Mavashal. Besides that, the Mechaber is bothered by the possibility that you'll put something liquid back after it cooled. So therefore, he's not so quick to paskin. He leaves it open. Maybe even he wants you to be strict, and he says the second opinion, the stricter opinion, second. In Sivches, when it's talking about dry things, so dry, whether it's hot or cold, is no problem. So there, it's only a question of machzik and vashal or not. There, he's lenient. So this is the way the Magen Avram explains the Mechaber. However, the Magen Avram himself says, I'm going to paskin leniently, even if it's a liquid, because I have a Magen Mishnah that is lenient like that. So these two opinions are the Rabbeinu Yerucham, and the Beis Yosef, the Mechaber, is being strict by liquid and lenient by solid. But the Magen Mishnah is lenient by both. And I'm going to paskin like that, and that's it. So in practice, the Magen Avram agrees with the Nagon, that in practice it's permissible. It's just a question of how do you understand the wording of the Mechaber. That's all. All right, let us learn the Alter Rebbe on this discussion.
so you're not gonna pass them like the second opinion, basically.
Like the first opinion,
But you're allowed to.
we're allowed to, both.
But it's an opposite from the Mechaber.
Right. He says, even though the Mechaber is strict on a liquid, but since the Magen Mishnah is lenient, I'm going to be lenient.
But all liquid is something that was hot in the beginning and cooled down. Not like something that was cold and you want to put it on or either one.
Either one. Usually,
Or
if,
you learn that there might be something that could be hot from this first. when you got here.
that's the Ramah's leniency. The Ramah's leniency that says that it does not have to be Yatzalet's boy, as long as it's still hot enough to serve the guests. It has to be hot from Yatzalet's boy.
You know, but hot from the first house, basically.
From when it was Yatzalet's boy. Can't be hot from, on Shabbos, heating it up on next to a fireplace. Oh, now it's already L'chaim, now I can put it on the top of a pot. No. It has to still be hot from when it was Yatzalet. Otherwise, it's just like cooking in the stages. Okay.
What happened got the rule, the Hama, that is spoken about the Shemesh, and said that now the sun heating out the pipes and the water in the pipes basically is not directly from the sun. Correct? You mentioned something. Yeah?
I don't remember if the poskim say that's considered tuldas chama. It's possible. It's possible.
So,
Don't remember.
If you put in like water in a vessel outside in the sun, let's say like aluminum, so the cup, the metal getting hot quicker than the water. So basically it's getting heated by the metal, not by the sun.
I don't think so. I think if it happens at the same time, it's considered chama. If at first you heat the metal and then the water is put in, then it's tuldas chama. But I'm pretty sure they say if it heats the same time, it's chama. I'm pretty sure. Okay, very quiet. I'm not hearing anything from Los Angeles, New York, or Hollywood. Hollywood? Aventura. I was getting mixed up because your bris was in Hollywood. Your son's bris. And David Leib, NMB, is that where you are? Wherever you are. Very quiet there. All right. I'll just have to assume that you all are following just fine. We are learning the Alter Rebbe on this discussion of heating up on a pot that's on or off the fire. Sorry, it is Seif Yudalit. Here we go. Kli sheyesh b'da racham shayat zeledes boy. I'm going to read it a little bit quickly because we really know this. Everybody knows. In b'shalach bishul b'yavesh, yesh b'shalach bishul balach. Kli Rishon could cook even off the fire, and we just went over in great detail that putting on top of a Kli Rishon that's on the fire is not mechzik and blush. So everybody knows all the details and all the basis for these halachas. So I'm just going to read it through somewhat quickly, but if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to stop me. Kli sheyesh b'da racham sheyat zeledes boy. A kli that has something hot in it, which is yat zeledes boy. You're allowed to put it on Shabbos on top of a pot that is insulated in clothing in order that it should remain hot and not cool down. And even if it was not fully cooked, and therefore there would be a prohibition of bishul if you would do something that would hasten its cooking. This is the Taz. Nevertheless, it's impossible at all for it to reach proper cooking. And not even to add to the cooking. All it will do is retain the heat. This is what we said yesterday. You are allowed to stick the dough into the mouth, into that little mouth between the two pots, in order to keep it hot. If you have dough that was needed from yesterday.
I think that today when I looked at it again, maybe instead of the batzek, it doesn't mean between the two pots, maybe just the top part, if you want it not to lose the heat. So this way, maybe you don't have to shut the batzek and be cooked.
Where the top pot? Where the top pot?
No, why you say like that? It's mean of the patty to put it on top. It doesn't mean, I don't think you can understand the gap between the two parts. It doesn't mean like the top part, if you want to say.
First of all, I don't agree. But second of all, what's the difference? The top part is also Kli Rishon.
Yeah, but it's not reaching X already.
Of course it is. The top pot is, no, read the beginning. You have a kli that is hot, that is yatzer ledes boy. You can put it down on Shabbos. Agabe keder hatmuna begonim, a keder that has hatmana in the clothes. But now that you mention it, maybe it does mean the top pot. It's still a question in terms of bishul, because it is yatzer ledes boy and it is a Kli Rishon. But I want to see the Mishnah Berurah. Give me a moment. Boom, 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 boom.
This is working or is it or
71.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost the audio feed also.
Oh, now you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
Okay, what's the last thing you heard?
I need to look
What's the
into
last thing you heard? Let me look into it. Yeah, I think Ronnie's right. I think when it says you're going to stick dough on the mouth of it, I think it's talking about the mouth of the top pot. I just don't think it's practical to put dough around the space between the two pots if the bottom pot is covered in garments. It's just going to make a mess. But nevertheless, the question that we asked yesterday, that actually Ronnie asked yesterday about the dough cooking, is still an issue. But we said yesterday that the Mishnah Berurah says it's clear from here that it's not going to be enough to bake it. But in any case, the point is, the dough has to have been kneaded from yesterday. Why? Why does the dough have to be kneaded from before Shabbos?
You can't knead dough on Shabbos.
You can't knead dough on Shabbos. It's a malacha, that is correct. One of the 39 malachas on Shabbos is losh, kneading. However, you are not allowed to sneak the top pot under the garments that are surrounding the bottom pot. Clearly disagreeing with the Mishnah Berurah, who says that you can. Okay. Tes Vav. You cannot put a kli that has something that is not so hot as to be yatz boy. If the bottom one is so hot that it will heat up the top one to yatz boy. The same thing applies if the bottom one is a kettle, pot, kettle, whatever. If it's hot enough to heat up the top pot to the point where you're in trouble. That's only if the top one is not fully cooked, in which case there's an issue of cooking even if it's still hot. But if it was fully cooked, but it cooled down a little bit, but it has not reached the heat of yatsa lettuce. Sorry, but it has cooled down from the heat of yatsa lettuce. This is the Ramah. If it's still hot enough to eat as a result of it being hot, meaning to say if the waiter would serve this soup you wouldn't send it back to the kitchen and say, what are you giving me cold soup for? You would eat it. It's not boiling. Maybe it's not even steaming, but it's hot enough to be hot soup. That is ein bishul balach according to the Rama. And the minhag is to consider that not like cooking. In such a case, you would be allowed to put it on top of a pot or a kettle to heat it up more. If it's something dry that was fully cooked, even if it's completely cooled down, there's no bishul. You're allowed to heat it up on top of them, even it's going to reach out so that it's boiled. Moving right along to Tez Zayin. Even if the pot is insulated on top of the fire. Now, how do you insulate on top of a fire? Like a kira that is not grufa or ketuma. Oh, I see his chiddush. The Kigoyin is not answering the question of how to insulate on top of a fire. That we already discussed. There are ways. Maybe it's not fully surrounded. Maybe it's not hugging the sides, whatever. He's saying, even if it's on a kira that is not grufa and ketuma, so you have open coals underneath this pot, which is allowed in some circumstances, like we said in 253. What are those circumstances? And you can have a pot that's on a fire that's not grufa and ketuma or ketuma. Completely mavushal or even half mavushal, according to Chananya, that is correct. So, or a kettle that's on the fire. So, mutter litan alein b'Shabbos, kol davar she'en mishum bishul. You're allowed to put anything on Shabbos that has no problem with bishul. For example, a dry tafshil, even if it's completely cold, the tafshil then it's gamri, or a liquid that has not yet cooled down, for the reason we explained over there, which is that it's basically not mechseik melashal, like the first opinion of the Mechaber in both Sif Zayin and Sif Ches. If it's still warm, only if it's still warm. If it's still warm, b'vakasha. Yeah. I understand, but you can't take it on Shabbos morning and put it on top.
If you keep it.
Yeah, as long as it's still hot. You don't need the conditions of Chazorah, but it has to still be hot. Otherwise, if it cools and you put it back on, then you're going to be heating it up. I understand that. It has to still be hot. That's the point. By the way, we didn't spell it out here, but the Meforshim do spell it out here, based on what we're going to say later. Later, we're going to say you're allowed to put a something next to a fire to get it warm, a fireplace, like the old-fashioned homes where they have fireplaces.
We don't know to do it. Also to tell the boy also not to do it.
Huh?
Back then.
No. You can put something opposite the fireplace for it to warm up, not to get hot, warm. If that place is never going to reach Yatsa Ledes Boy, just warm. But if you want to put it closer than that, to a point where it would get Yatsa Ledes Boy, but you're planning to take it away before that, it's going to take a half hour to reach Yatsa Ledes Boy, and you're going to take it off in 10 minutes. No, can't, because you may forget. So the same thing applies here, the Meforshim say. If you're going to put something on top of a pot, whether on or off the fire, and the thing is something that is liquid, right? Or it's not fully cooked, even if it's dry. And you figure, I'm going to take it off before it reaches Yatsa Ledes Boy, it's not going to be a problem. No. If it could reach Yatsa Ledes Boy, even if it would take a long time, you can't put it there because you may forget. That's just a side point.
About his question. If the pot, if you pick it up, then maybe you don't know how to put it back. But if it's inside the block and you go like this with the tea, and this touches the bottom, and you pull for your cup, and then you put it back. It's okay.
It doesn't have to be touching the bottom. You can pick it up or put it back. You have conditions of chazar. Why not? It's in your hand.
Okay.
Still hot.
So what's your question? The water.
He's asking if you have tea essence on top of a pot. You want to take it and make tea and put it back. If it's still going to be hot, it's okay. You don't have to keep the conditions of chazar if it's going to be on top of a pot.
It's the same thing if you whatever just mislocked, if you took it out.
No, you don't have to keep it in your hands. If it's on the blech, you have to keep it in your hands. If you want to put it on top of a pot, you don't have to keep it in your hands because you don't need the conditions of chazar.
But it should be hot.
It has to still be hot. That's correct. All right, my friends, with no further ado, we continue with the Machaber in Seif Tes. The moment has arrived to learn more about a Kli Rishon, as well as about spices, salt, and ox meat. You ready? All in one night. Kli Rishon. Pirush HaKli Mishtamshin Boy Al Ha'esh. A Kli Rishon, which is a Kli that we use on the fire. In case you don't know what a Kli Rishon is, now you know. A Kli Rishon, which is a Kli, a utensil that is used on the fire. Afilu la'achar shehaviru me'al ha'esh. Even after you took it off of the fire, mevashal, it cooks kol zman shehayad seledes boy, as long as it's still yad seledes boy. Now, the Taz brings that the Beis Yosef brings that the Hagoy's Mordechai says maybe it's only a Kli Rishon while it's still like boiling hot. But if you let it cool down a little bit, maybe it automatically becomes a Kli Sheni. How is it possible? He doesn't say what level exactly. I guess he means like the heat of a Kli Sheni. It's a Kli Rishon as long as it's as hot as a Kli Rishon is supposed to be, whatever that is. And when it reaches a temperature that is the normal temperature of a Kli Sheni, it becomes a Kli Sheni, just like that. Magic. I mean, basically, according to that opinion, it's all about temperatures, not about pots. However, the Taz says that cannot be. Impossible. The Beis Yosef himself argues on it, and the Taz also argues on it. And the Taz brings a Mishnah, which is the source of this whole discussion, which is, Ha'ilfas, listen carefully, Ha'ilfas la'akdeira shehaviron birutachin la'ita l'sechan tavlin. If you took a pot or a pan off of the fire, havir means you removed it, birutachin, and they're still hot. La'ita l'sechan tavlin, you cannot put spices into them. Rashi explains, when do you take it off, bein hashmashas? When do you want to put it back at night when you want to actually eat? Not at the same time. Nevertheless, you cannot do it, and Rashi explains, the Kli Rishon calls manshu reseach mavasha. As long as it's hot, it cooks. So the Taz says it's clear from the Gemara, as it's explained by Rashi, that as long as it's in the Kli Rishon, it's no good. And here's the explanation that we've mentioned in the past, that Tosfos gives. What is the difference between a Kli Rishon and a Kli Sheni? When after all, a Kli Rishon, maybe you left it there for a long time, and it's barely Yad Zeledes boy, and it has the power to cook. Whereas if you pour it into a Kli Sheni, it's still hot because you just now took it off the fire, poured it into a Kli Sheni, it can't cook. I mean, maybe it could cook some things, we don't know, but really, I mean, Meikar Hadin for most everything, it can't cook. That's what a Kli Sheni is, right? What's the reason for the difference? Tosfos asks. So Tosfos answers, famous word, the walls. Tosfos says the walls. Tosfos says the walls are the key. The walls, which were heated by the fire, are keeping it hot. Whereas the Kli Sheni, the walls are cooling it down. Meaning to say, if we put it into scientific language a little bit, the Kli Rishon is maintaining a steadier heat for a longer time, whereas the Kli Sheni is losing heat more rapidly. So this particular Kli Sheni might be hotter than this particular Kli Rishon, but the Kli Rishon is going to retain its heat for a longer time than the Kli Sheni. And when I was getting smicha back in Melbourne, Australia, the one who gave us smicha, who I believe needs a refuah shleima, Rabbi Elia Fisher, is the Rosh Kollel in Ger in Bar Park. So he said this word. I don't remember how it connected to smicha, because we were not learning Hilchos Shabbos, we were learning other things. But anyway, he said this word. He said, what's the Hayron Avodas Hashem? What do you learn from this in Avodas Hashem? There's always, you can learn, even from Nigla, from the revealed aspects of the Torah, you can learn lessons in serving Hashem. So he says, you can have somebody who's very, very hot. He's like super hot in his Avodas Hashem. In his serving Hashem, he's hot. That's fine. But if you want to influence somebody else, right, to cook means to change somebody. You want to change somebody else, you can't do it if you're going down. Even if you're still hot, but if you're going down, it's not going to work. If you're steady, even if you're not so hot, but you're steady, you can influence somebody else. But if you're going down, it's not going to work. Just a nice little word on the side. So we continue and we say, oh, by the way, the Magen Avram brings a Yerushalmi, which is very interesting. The Yerushalmi says, Asu ha'chaka likli rishon afilu ein hayatz ledas boy. The Yerushalmi says you shouldn't add Asu ha'chaka likli rishon, the Magen Avram, quoting the Yerushalmi. Asu ha'chaka likli rishon afilu ein hayatz ledas boy. They made a ha'chaka not to put something in a Kli Rishon, even if it's not yatz ledas boy. Big chiddush. You took it off the fire an hour ago. It's not hot. You still should not add something that is raw, spices, whatever, because 5 minutes ago it was hot, and you'll get used to adding to a Kli Rishon. No good.
Dry, Rabbi?
Anything that has the laws of Bishul. If it's not cooked, even if it's dry, yeah. If it's liquid, even if it was cooked, all whatever the rules of Bishul apply to. Okay, therefore, aser litin l'soichet tavle. You are not allowed to put spices into it. Now, this is the most practical thing, because usually you don't put raw food into a pot that's off the fire, because it's not going to cook. You have chicken soup. You're not going to put raw carrots, into the chicken soup off the fire, because it's just not going to cook. I mean, halachically we say, yeah, it is going to cook, but practically it's not going to cook enough to make it edible. It's like having a salad in your soup. Nobody wants that. But what's the practical application, right? I mean, it does apply to other foods, but it's not so practical. The practical application is tavlin. You want to put some dill in, you want to put some pepper, you want to give it some spices. No, you can't, because it's going to cook. Aval melach, but salt, mutter litin l'soichoi, you're allowed to put into the pot. Kevin shavim ala eish, as soon as you put it off the fire. Tetzircha milcha bishula kebisra detura. Here. Salt is a mineral. It's very hard. It's not easy to cook salt. It takes a lot of effort to cook salt. just like cooking ox meat. You want to cook ox meat, it's not going to work off the fire. You better put it on the fire and leave it there for a long time. Then it's going to cook. So salt, according to this opinion, is like ox meat. And it does not cook in a pot off the fire. According to this opinion, you could salt your soup or your cholent as soon as you take it off the fire, even in the original pot. It's an exception. Just like we had exceptions, we said there are some things that cook in a Kli Sheni, some things that even cook in the ear of a Kli Sheni, maybe even a Kli Shlishi, whatever it is. There's an exception on the other side. This is a food that's hard to cook. It does not cook even in a Kli Rishon. There's another opinion, so don't get too excited yet. Now, the Machaber adds, as a parenthetical statement, now that we mentioned that ox meat does not cook in a Kli Rishon, the Machaber says that, by the way, by the way, if the ox meat was salted, so the saltiness kind of softened it, you shouldn't put it into a pot that is off the fire. Because even though ox meat itself does not cook in a Kli Rishon off the fire, you have to cook it on the fire. But once it's salted, it gets softened up a little bit, and there's also juices in there from the salt. The salt extracts the juices. Those can cook in a Kli Rishon off the fire. So don't put such meat into a Kli Rishon off the fire. Yep.
There's no machloket about the salt. If it's and the soup is going to be
change. Liquefy. Liquefaction does not mean cooking. You can liquefy salt in cold water too, sugar too, many things. But we are going to discuss that there is a stricter opinion about salt coming up.
Is there any other type of meat comparable to ox meat then? It's that tough?
Kangaroo meat. No, I'm just kidding. I have no idea.
Because they specifically say ox meat.
Yeah, well, that's the toughest kosher meat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's a tougher kosher meat. Bison, maybe. Bison. Around in an average household. So.
But, I mean, I don't know. I mean, does anyone eat ox today? I've never seen it.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No? I mean, veal, definitely.
Yeah, they sell oxtail.
Oxtail is that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, one second. When you get an average, when you get a roast, what is that?
I think it's from an ox.
Not from an ox?
Cow.
Oh, what's the difference? Yeah. Doesn't make a difference, an ox or cow. I mean, as opposed to a sheep or a goat.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
Male or female, I don't think it makes a difference. Oh, you mean maybe because the ox is muscular? Is that what you mean?
It's a tougher.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Could be, you're right.
The Gemara doesn't have cows goring each other.
Could be, you're right. Could be, you're right. I don't know. That's an interesting point. I never thought of this as an ox as opposed to a cow. I always thought of it as an ox as opposed to a sheep or a goat. But you're saying maybe it's the ox, which is more muscular.
And more aggressive and just tougher. So that would mean it's tougher meat.
Is that how it works? If you're like a tough guy, your meat gets tough. I wonder.
But that's the whole point. It makes that distinction. It doesn't.
I hear you. I never thought of that. Maybe.
I heard giraffes are kosher too, but I'm gonna eat them. But that's gonna be a tough meat also.
Yeah.
The gamier stuff.
I hear you. I mean, Lemaisa, the Ramah is strict about ox meat in a Kli Rishon, and some say that even the Machaber can be interpreted like the Ramah. So it's not so clear. No. Salt is not like a tawlin, because according to the opinion we just had, salt does not cook in a Kli Rishon, and tawlin does. Sorry?
Is it even salted nowadays?
Especially salted nowadays. Even the salt of those days
I would think
that wasn't cooked before doesn't cook in a Kli Rishon. How much more so our salt, which is already cooked. Understand? More reason to be lenient.
I would have thought that maybe our salt is more fine, made in factories, so it would be such a small particle and it would melt on something hot, but theirs were maybe more coarse and would have taken a lot more heat to melt it.
I mean, I do hear what you're saying, but we do have halachas in Hilchos Yantif about grinding salt. So they knew how to grind. You know what I mean? It's not like they didn't grind it. You're right. Their salt, the way it came was coarse, but they did grind salt. So it's hard to say exactly.
Nowadays, salt, like a grain of salt is. I don't know how well their grinding utensils work, but for sure, when I take a very, very grounded salt from let's say a shaker, it's very, very, very small.
I understand, but it wasn't that different in those days. I mean, they did grind, is what I'm saying. They did have ground salt. Maybe
So
it was,
nowadays, would we be allowed to put our salt on the Kli Rishon? In the Kli Rishon?
according to the Mechaber, yes.
While it's cooking.
No. Chas v'shalom, even ox meat on the fire will cook.
No, I'm saying nowadays.
One second.
Our salt's cooked.
Our salt is like ox meat. I mean, our salt is even more lenient than ox meat because our salt's already cooked. But besides that, salt needs to be cooked like ox meat. Ox meat does cook on the fire, obviously. You can't put ox meat on the fire. You can put it, in theory, besides the fact that it has liquid, whatever, in theory, you can put it off the fire, into a Kli Rishon, off the fire, never on the fire. What's your question?
My question was, I just had to think about it more, but I wasn't able to because we were speaking about it.
Can you put something cooked into, thank you,
Into a Kli Rishon.
into a Kli Rishon on the fire?
Oh, but no, it's going to get hot and melted, right?
It's already cooked.
Okay,
It's already cooked.
I got the definition.
1 second. Rafael wants to know if you can put something already cooked into a pot that's on the fire.
But even if it's already cooked, bringing it to let's let it go.
Really? A dry thing?
Right, that's right.
It was also was on Kli Rishon on the fire. It was on the fire.
You're cooking something.
You-
You want
you-
to add salt.
You want to add salt.
So we don't like the salt of Kli Rishon, especially when it's on the fire.
Okay, so the Ramah is going to bring the stricter opinion. And we don't add the salt even to a klisheni. But according to the opinion the Mechaber brings, which is the main halacha, even the Ramah agrees it's the main halacha. Yes, a person who wants to be machmer gets a bracha, but it's the main halacha. So if you can add it off the fire, those days the salt was not cooked before.
So it's off the fire or on the fire?
In the Mechaber, he's talking about only off the fire.
Nobody.
But nobody's talking about on the fire. But Rafal is taking the next step, and he's saying if the salt today is already cooked, let's say it is, I'm pretty sure the sea salt of today is cooked. I don't know about the mineral salt. I don't know if they process the mineral salt by cooking it or not. I once read about it, but I don't have it clear in my head right now. But let's say you have sea salt, right? That was cooked. So Rafal is asking, can you add it to a pot that's on the fire? It's already cooked.
Then
It's about Yovish.
Sorry,
It's Yovish.
it's Yavish.
I probably know that can be Bishul on Bishul.
Yavish, Bishul HaBishul?
is mitzvah conversion?
Oh, that's the issue.
I was gonna say because if you put even something else, a piece of chicken which is dry on top of the Kli Rishon, you're not allowed to do that.
On top is
No,
okay.
no, no,
Inside is Masik Olash.
no, no.
On top is fine. You can put your little salt container on top.
So the
On top, you can't put it in because of Masik Olash. There is another issue, by the way, because you said it's Yavish. So it is Yavish, but it liquefies as soon as you put it in. And there is an opinion in the Rishonim, we're going to get to it, that says that we go by, if it becomes liquid, it's already considered liquid. Now, Alter Rebbe and the Siddur Pascha is like that. So according to that, for sure you can't put it. Understand?
I have the cow things.
Yeah, go ahead.
A cow is a female,
Yes.
okay?
Just,
A male,
just don't call a female a cow.
right, a male is a bull, okay? if it's left intact, it stays a bull. They usually castrate them, and then they become a steer, and then they grow to be an ox.
An ox is a castrated bull.
So-
Yeah, I knew that. But I don't think that's the Torah's definition.
So that's,
I don't think it's the Torah's definition, because you're not allowed to castrate according to the Torah. In the Torah, even though in yeshiva, when we learned about, oxen, goring, and all of that, we used the word ox. I don't think it meant an ox. I think it meant a steer. I mean, a bull. A shore doesn't have to be that it was castrated.
Actually, it's that.
They use ox everywhere.
They use it
But the reason
colloquially.
Yeah, because you don't want.
They use it as a borrowed term. They don't mean a castrated
So
bull.
can they just say bull?
Because in yeshiva they say ox, so they say ox.
They say that
Correct everybody, man.
well, they say that that's one of the reasons they castrate the bull, because
So they shouldn't
should
gore
calm
people.
down.
Exactly.
So
Same
it's
thing
kind
with
of ironic
dogs.
it
Same
could be
thing with
ox.
dogs.
Yeah.
Because they get too wild if they're not.
Again, going back to what we were learning about, so is it an ox that it's talking about, or
It's
we're
definitely
assuming
not a
beef?
castrated animal.
That's what I'm saying. So it
necessarily.
can't be an ox.
Nothing to do
So
with
is it maybe a
castration.
generic term for beef? Which would
It
be
could
cow,
be a generic term for a male
that'd be a steer. then.
steer.
But definitely not a.
No, a steer is also
It
castrated.
could be, or it could be just for
A steer is
beef.
castrated as well.
I'm saying it has nothing to do with castration. Because
So it's gotta be a bull.
they didn't believe it. We don't believe in castration.
So it's got to be a
Is it
bull.
there a
then.
bonnet?
It could be either a bull or an ox specifically, or it could be just beef in general, whether it's a cow or a male or female is what I mean.
Is
Sorry?
there a bonnet to castrate an animal?
No, it's in the Torah. V'artzachom leisasu. Umov v'chasus v'sadara leisakrivu ela Hashem. You can't bring them to Hashem. Uva'artzachom leisasu, and you can't do it in the rest of the land either.
So how do they get around that with ox?
You have to buy one that's already castrated. You can't take can't buy a dog and have it castrated. You can't have a guy do it for you either, because it's a mir lakum,
What should you say?
which is a Issa D'Rabbanan.
Even during Chol.
Yeah, no, it's an Issa D'Rabbanan that applies to all mitzvahs. Shabbos is one example of it, but it applies to you. You can't tell a guy to cut down a fruit tree that you don't like. You know what I mean, on your property. It's a general thing. Okay. Yep. Okay.
What if Goy tells a guy? What's our
Actually, the Rambam holds, even though it's not kind of the Shev Mitzvahs, the Rambam holds that castration is forbidden for Goyim. Even for Goyim.
Does it have to do with adulterous relations?
No, I don't remember what he bases it on. Or maybe I'm getting mixed up with Kilayim. Actually, I think I'm getting mixed up with Kilayim. I think he holds Kilei Behema as Asr from Goyim. I have to look that up. It's in Hilchos Malachim. Okay. So we continue and we say, Haggah, the Rama adds, but nearly it seems to me, to below melach nami asr, that it's also even without salt. Talking about ox meat in a Kli Rishon. Ela denokad malach, except that he mentions salt. Very simple. The Rush is the one who says this whole thing. Because the Gemara says, listen carefully. The Gemara says, Tzricha milcha bishula kibisra detur. According to this opinion. Salt you can put in a Kli Rishon because it has to be cooked like ox meat. Meaning to say, a Kli Rishon off the fire can't cook ox meat. Same thing with salt. So the Rosh comes along and says, even though it says that, nevertheless, you cannot put salted ox meat into a Kli Rishon because the liquid is going to cook. Now, there's two ways of understanding when the Rosh says salted ox meat. One way is, like we said before, that if it's salted, it's already softened and it has liquid, and that's why you can't put it in. Another way is how the Ramah is saying. It means you can't put any ox meat into a Kli Rishon because it has liquid. His point is, even though it's already salted, so therefore it's ready to eat, other than the fact that it's not cooked. Because if it's not salted, It's full of blood. What's going to help to put it in? Yeah, you washed it. Yeah, you salted it again, according to the Machaber. According to the Ramah, it doesn't mean that it's salted right now. It means it was salted. It was salted. There's no blood in it. That's the point. It doesn't have to be salted now. The point is it was salted. It has no blood in it. So the only issue is cooking. Can't cook. You understand? The point is that it has liquid. That even ox meat has liquid in it. You understand? It has some lachluchis. It's not a piece of dry through and through meat. So therefore it's forbidden. Now, by the way, the Magen Avram says that this is a machlekes between the Mechaber and the Ramah. And according to the Mechaber, you could put ox meat into a Kli Rishon off the fire unless it's salted. Actually, now salted, not that it was once salted. You know what I'm saying? It has to be still salted and still softened and liquefied, whatever. But according to the Ramah, no, you can't put it in at all. Whereas the Taz says, no, maybe this pshat that the Ramah is saying in the Rosh can be said in the Mechaber too. That the Mechaber, when he says salted, he doesn't mean after salted. He means even though it's salted, same thing like we just said in the Ramah. Even though it's already salted, so it has no blood in it, still you can't put it in. If it was never salted, it's going to be full of blood. Of course, we're not even talking about that. Okay. In any case, this is all theoretical because I don't think we're putting raw ox meat in Kli Rishons.
What's the difference between Torah, where it says Torah for ox and then Shur?
Torah is Aramaic and Shur is Hebrew.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. The Shulchan Aruch uses the word Shur, but the Gemara actually, it goes back and forth. The quote in the Shulchan Aruch, this line, "Etzricha milcha bishula kibisra de Torah," that's a quote from the Gemara. But then when he goes back to the Hebrew of the Shulchan Aruch, he uses the word Shur. So that's just the Hebrew for Torah. Okay. Hagah says the Ramah. Oh, we said that already, sorry. Yesh oisrim, and some forbid lasis melach afilu b'kli sheni, to put salt even into a kli sheni. Calls man shayad seledes bay, as long as it's yad seledes bay. How do we come up with an argument from one extreme to the other? The first opinion says salt does not cook even in a kli rishon off the fire. The second one says even a kli sheni cooks salt. And the Machaber and the Ramah says, "V'hamachmir tavoi olav bracha." A person who is strict should get a bracha. How do we come from one extreme to the other? So, the only answer I have for you today is to quote the Gemara. That is the basis of these two opinions, and I'll share the Gemara with you, and that will explain where we get this chumrah from. But honestly, it's not going to explain the underlying concept. Like, what's the underlying concept? Obviously, there's some deep difference of opinion between the first and the second opinion in the mechanism of cooking salt. That the first opinion says, wow, this is such a difficult thing to cook. The second opinion says, no, this cooks so easily. That I can't explain today. Didn't get around to looking into it. But I will explain to you the basis for it in the Gemara. So here's the Gemara, my friends.
Maybe one's talking about Melach Sodomis.
No. Both talking about regular salt, which would include both Melach Sodomis and sea salt, same. It doesn't differentiate. And they had both in those days too. Okay.
Oh, could you please translate Ella de Naket Mulu de Belav Hachi Aser? Could you just translate that again?
Ella, says the Ramah, Ella de Nakat Maluach, but the rush, Nakat literally means he grabbed. He grabbed, meaning to say he discussed a case of salted meat. De Belav Hachi, because if not for this, Asur Mishum Dam Shabai, it's forbidden because of the blood that's in it. The reason the Rush said salted meat is not because it's only salted meat that is a problem in the Kli Rishon, and unsalted meat is not a problem. What he means is that even though it was salted, and therefore there's no blood in it, it's a problem because of the liquid that's in it. But if it's not, if it was never salted, it's just you can't eat it anyway because it's full of blood. You understand?
Right, yeah. Was he just grabbing it because he didn't have any salt or something like that, and that's why he?
I'm sorry.
Was he grabbing it because he didn't have any salt and he wanted to use this meat to make the soup salty? Was that the reasoning?
No, the word grabbing is an expression for discussing. The Rosh who discussed meat that was salted when he said it's forbidden to put salted meat into a Kli Rishon. When the Rosh discussed that case, the word nakat, which means grabbed, is an expression. It's like he discussed it. He grabbed that case out of the air. Why did he grab that case? Why did he discuss that case? Simply because that is a case where your only issue with the meat is the issue of cooking on Shabbos. He did not discuss unsalted meat because you're not going to be able to eat it anyway because it's full of blood. He just discussed the practical case of regular meat that you buy in the butcher store nowadays, which has already been salted. You understand?
Okay, so it's just the case that's already salted meat. We can't use it because there's blood in it. So
no,
that's going to cook.
Unsalted meat still has blood in it.
Right.
Salted meat, which is already clear of the blood, and your only issue is cooking on Shabbos, the Rosh is telling you, you cannot put it into a Kli Rishon because the liquid in that, the moisture in it, is going to cook.
Because of the moisture inside the meat.
Exactly. Now, if it would have been unsalted meat, the moisture in that meat would also cook.
Yeah.
But he doesn't bother telling you that because that you wouldn't be allowed to eat anyway because it's full of blood.
Right.
That's all.
Okay.
Okay, my friends. Ronnie asked before if salt is like tavlin or not, like spices or not. Tavlin. So the answer is Rav Yosef said, Sovar Rav Yosef Lamemer. Rav Yosef thought to say, Melach Ariyok Tavlin. Salt is the same as spices. I'm reading from the Gemara on Mem Beis Amud Beis. I meant to email this out and I didn't remember. I'll email it later tonight just so you'll have it. Rav Yosef thought to say salt is like spices. That it cooks in a Kli Rishon and not in a Kli Sheni, like we said in the past, that a Kli Sheni does not cook spices. Amalei Abaya says, he corrected his teacher. Right? Rav Yosef got sick. He forgot a lot of what he learned. And and Abaya reminded him. Abaya said, Tani Reb Chia, we learned from the price of Reb Chia, Melach Eino Ketav. Salt is not like spices. The Kli Sheni Nami B'Sheila. It cooks even in a Kli Sheni. It's like a Kalei HaBishul, according to the first opinion. It's like Kalei HaBishul. It's something that cooks very easily. That's the first version of the Gemara. Upliga Rav Nachman. And according to this version of the Brisa, this argues with Rav Nachman. Now, Rav Nachman says, "Tzricha milcha bishula kibisra detur." Salt meat has to be cooked like ox meat. It's exactly upliga the Rav Nachman. This brisa that we quoted from Rav Chia argues on Rav Nachman, who says that it's like ox meat and it does not cook in a Kli Rishon. You understand? According to the first version of the Gemara, the brisa says it cooks you in a Kli Sheni. It's Kalei HaBishul. Rav Nachman, who came much after the brisa, and generally an Amor cannot argue on a Tana, Rav Nachman held that it does not cook even in a Kli Rishon. On the fire. Only on the fire. Only on the fire. Exactly. Not on the fire, it's not going to cook. Exactly. It's going to dissolve, but it's not going to cook. Cooking is something different. Salt needs to. Sorry? No. It could be in a pot on the fire, but not in a pot that's off the fire. Just like ox meat, if you put it into a pot that's off the fire, what's it going to do? It's so hard. It's never going to cook. You need to put it on the fire. Of course, on the fire, you don't have to put it directly with the fire. It could be in upon the fire, but it has to be on the fire. It can't be in a Kli Rishon. Yeah, only Kli Rishon off the fire.
It's exactly the same thing. The salt is absorbed in the food. It is on fire for the sun.
Salt is exactly the same, and it's going to be absorbed in the food whether it's on or off the fire. So what's your question?
So the dish is going to be it's cooking or not cooking, but in both ways, bottom line is absorbing the food. So what is the issue of cooking?
Actually, what you're saying leads on to what I was thinking of the difference between the opinions being. I was thinking about explaining the different opinions about whether a salt cooks in a Kli Sheni or not even a Kli Rishon as follows. But it's kind of just airy-fairy words, but I'll say it anyway. How do you define the cooking of salt? Salt, you don't really have to cook salt. I mean, salt is fine cooked, not cooked. I mean, it's good, salty taste. You can lick the salt deposits in the caves, and it will be fine, whether it's cooked or not. And the sea salt, the same thing. So there's two ways of defining the cooking of salt. Yeah, Shomea? One way is that when you mix it with something hot, the heat spreads the salt much better. That's a fact, right? If you salt a hot dish, you have to put much less salt than if you salt it when it's cold. Because when it's hot, the heat spreads it out better. So you get the same salty taste with less salt. But if you have to add it when it's cold, it stays in its little area.
Never say it's cold. Say it's going to secondly, but
I'm just saying, in general, when something is salted, when it's cold, it does not spread as well.
it's not staying. Also, it's not disappear.
No, yeah, it could. No, it could dissolve. Even in cold, it could dissolve. It could dissolve.
If it's raw, if it's dry, if it's cooked already, it really can stay there.
No, if you mix it, it will dissolve.
If you mix it.
If you mix it, I'm saying, you don't need heat. You can mix it.
Gosh, what I try to say bottom line is do the same, אותו פעולה בדיוק. זה נהיה אותו דבר.
No, I'm explaining to you now. Takshib. So according to the opinion that says salt cooks in a Kli Sheni even, which is the opinion we just learned now, and the second opinion that's part of the Ramah, the definition of cooking salt is that the heat spreads the flavor. That's the definition of cooking salt. Because that's what you care about when it comes to salt. Do I need it to be cooked, like cooked, chemically cooked? I don't need that. I just need the heat to spread. I need the saltiness to spread. And a Kli Sheni accomplishes that. So that's why they say even a Kli Sheni cooks the salt. The opinion that says, no, it has to be cooked like ox meat, they say no. It's not the spreading of the flavor. It has to be a certain effect on the salt. It chemically changes, just like different foods. When they're cooked, there's a chemical change in the food. The way the molecules are arranged, it changes. With salt, it takes a lot to change, to make that change. So it's not about spreading the flavor. It's about some kind of change in the salt itself, and that takes a longer time to happen. Those are the two possible ways of understanding. But if you say it's about spreading the flavor, you're right. There should be no difference of a Kli Rishon and a Kli Sheni, and that's the reason for the first opinion in the Gemara. Exactly, spread the flavor. So that's why this opinion is strict, perhaps.
Okay. Anything you do in the Kli Shlishi is no problem for all of us, for all the.
We had in the past that some are strict, even in the Kli Shlishi, with something that for sure Hilchos Bishul, but even something that may be Kli Bishul, we don't know. The Uraim was strict. With salt, you have to remember that even in a Kli Rishon, it's mutar me'ikar hadin. And even a Kli Sheni, tavalev bracha. So to be strict on a Kli Shlishi seems like a triple chumrah. I'm not saying there's no room for a triple chumrah, but it's a triple chumrah. Okay.
Thinking about everything, about Kli Shlishi, then it will be easy. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you supposed to be choshesh? No, are you supposed to be choshesh to every opinion?
Are you supposed to, or are you allowed to? What's the question?
Is it a good thing to be choshesh to every scripture? I mean, it sounds like Shulchan Aruch and Paskin like that, the Ramad and Paskin like that, and to find one Rishon who says a chumrah and to be stringent like him sounds like a chumrah teira.
Like maybe a yuhara, like maybe you're being arrogant. Like who are you to be more strict than everybody else?
It sounds like
So here's the thing. Here's the thing. Yeah, it actually reminds me of a comment of the previous Rebbe when somebody mentioned about eating shmur matzah, which nowadays everybody does, but at that time, it was like a chumrah.
Rabbi, we don't have 10 for Myra, we have 9.
You want to get
There's still
somebody?
some guys who-
Yeah, please. Yeah, please.
according to the neighbor.
No,
No,
the
if
guys
there's
in
somebody
the
still here.
There are guys over
Rabbi
there.
Glaston's here, I'll ask Rabbi Glaston.
Yeah, because they usually daven Myra, I think, around 4. For like
If-
us.
If they're davening at 1:45, we'll join them. Or if not, maybe they can come here. Anyway, somebody said something to the Frierdiker Rebbe, to the previous Rebbe, about shmur matzah. So he said, shmur dafman in the hoizen. Speak Yiddish. You have to guard yourself in your pants. Shmur means guard. You're guarding the matzah. What about your pants? Exactly. There's much more important things you have to guard. So-
Who sent them? He sent Hasidim somewhere. I forgot the exact details.
Yeah.
They might have, or some Hasidim Rebbe sent his students somewhere and they didn't know where they were going. And he said, you'll understand the message when you see it. So they went to an inn and they were asking about the meat, who shechted it, with a knife checked, every question you could ask. So some guy screams from the side, Hasidim, you ask so much what comes into your mouth. You watch so much what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah. It's a good word.
We're the only one.
It's a good word. Perfect. You're the man. The Shekhinah has arrived.
Yes.
Thank you for bringing it. Okay, my friends from around the world, we're going to have to take a little Ma'ariv break, and we're going to continue after Ma'ariv. I apologize.
Listen, I can wait. I'll sit down while you request.
It's 23 minutes. You sure?
Yeah.
Those guys.
All right. So have a seat then, please, by all means. You get some Torah study in. Okay, so the break has been canceled, and we're going to continue the class. Thank you very much. Okay, so in terms of, okay, I'll answer your question. Your question was, do you have to be a machma like every opinion? So honestly, if an opinion is specifically negated in the Shulchan Aruch, then I don't think it's the place for.
That's Yachid that's not brought in the Shulchan Aruch.
1 second. If an opinion is negated in the Shulchan Aruch, then I don't think it's for a regular person to be strict. For example, Rashi and Ibn Tam's Tefillin. Both opinions are brought in the Shulchan Aruch. Okay, it also says about Nefesh, whatever. But the other opinions about Tefillin, there's other opinions about Tefillin. The orders. Sharabah, Ravid, that's already enough for the average person. Doesn't even bring it in Shulchan. The Ravid and Shemush Rabbah,
That's the same thing.
no. One of them,
Which one was like Rashi, just bigger.
no. That's another opinion of Shemush Rabbah. There's 2 opinions of Shemush Rabbah. He writes different things. Shemush Rabbah and the Ravid are the same Shel Yad as Rashi and Ibn Tam, but one of them flips around the entire Shel Rosh to the exact opposite order of Rashi, and the other flips around the Shel Rosh to the exact opposite order of Ibn Tam.
Which one?
I don't remember which is which. So if you put on 4 pairs of tefillin, what it means is it's 2 complete pairs, and then 2 shell rushes. One replaces the Rashi. You keep on the shell out of the Rashi, and you change it to the shell rush of the other one, and the other replaces it.
You know anyone in the world who does that?
I used to know somebody,
All 4?
all 4. He was a mashpia Olathar, he passed away. And there is another fellow that I know who lives in Orlando. His name is Stuart Farber. And he puts on 4 pairs of tefillin. Because he read about it, he liked the idea, and he did it. He didn't ask me. But anyway, so yeah, you have to be on the level. Anyway, but honestly over here, it's not 100% clear. Because he doesn't discuss a Kli Shlishi. You understand? He doesn't discuss a Kli Shlishi. He doesn't say it's allowed, doesn't say it's not allowed. You could say that Kli Sheni and the mention of the opinion that says Kli Sheni is forbidden, maybe it means anything beyond a Kli Rishon that's still hot, maybe it's still awesome. Or you could say, no, he only says Kli Sheni because Kli Sheni is close to Kli Rishon. And that's it, and not Kli Shlishi. It's not 100% clear. So it's not an outlandish chumrah. I don't think Shabbos is a very strict thing. It's not outlandish.
I heard Hilchos records that's the chumras of dinner, and you should try specifically not to. Yes, and doesn't the Gemara say kol machmer bor and kol machmer tov? No. Forgot the other phrase, but whatever. 2-7 something is machmer, right?
Well, there is talk about people who are machmir in a foolish way. You know what I mean? If they don't know what they're doing, a person could be sometimes machmir in a way that doesn't make sense. It's not even logical.
Right.
So that's true. But here we're talking about a person who knows and he's machmir because of the valid reasons to be machmir. Yeah, are we going to ask?
Shabbat. They have Shulam Kli Sheni on the table, and they have another Kli Sheni with rice. They have different if you put sand with something more liquid with solid. You can put on the rice, but don't put on the Shulam because they have more liquid, it can serve differently.
There's a difference between putting salt in liquids.
No.
So what was the question?
Yeah, this is the question.
No.
Different.
Well, the shalom
There's no
is
difference.
Moist, but it's moist, moist or dry, like rice and Shulam.
No. Same. Those, oh, you mean,
We should need a table. They said they bring.
let's put it this way. There is an opinion, I think we mentioned in the past, that a solid piece is considered to be a Kli Rishon even when it's in a Kli Sheni. That a solid piece, like a piece of chicken, for example, even if it's out of the first pot on your plate, some say that it's still like a Kli Rishon. Why? Because if you remember, the whole reason why a Kli Sheni is colder is because the walls cool it down. So they say that's only because it's a liquid, so it spreads into the walls. So the walls cool it down. But a solid piece, it doesn't touch the walls. It just sits on the bottom. So then they say, there's an opinion that says that still retains the heat of the Kli Rishon, of the original pot. So in terms of that, maybe there's more reason to be strict than something solid. But in any case, the main halacha is that even in a Kli Rishon, it's not a problem to put salt. You understand?
Are there any achronim that paskin like the Rambam?
The Ramah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Kli Sheni?
No. Shlishi.
No. You mean the Uraim.
Oh, that's right.
You mean the Uraim.
Yeah, that's right.
Are there any achronim that paskin like the Uraim?
Or that say it's a good idea to do it as a chumrah?
I haven't seen.
Because if it's not, it could be all right. No.
I haven't seen. I don't know.
I'm saying if you learn the sugya and you see that all the other, I'm not saying unless you're achron yourself, all the achronim didn't paskin, didn't mention, didn't use the chumrah, and all of a sudden you're going to be machmer.
No, there are achronim that bring down the chumrah of
Bring-
the Kli Shlishi.
Bring it down for sure. The question is, bring down is just to do.
They bring it down. They don't negate it. They don't negate it.
Right.
They don't
It's
negate
original.
it.
It's an opinion of negating an opinion.
I was just saying they bring it down. They discuss it. They don't come out clearly.
Right, I'm saying,
Not
we
like
should
it.
discuss it. The question is, we suggest doing.
They don't say not to do it. Let's put it that way. Yes.
To be maker, you need to be person for stature. Everybody can be maker.
Yeah. There are some achronim who are clearly mekel, like the Moshe. You know what? One second, I have in my head that the Prima Godim, we mentioned the Prima Godim, but a Kli Shlishi. But yeah, the Prima Godim brought the Prima Godim is mekel on the Kli Shlishi. Prima Godim is mekel on the Kli Shlishi, and Reb Moshe is also mekel, straight out.
Our question was who's machmer.
I'm sorry?
Our question is someone
Who is
say-
machmer? Yeah, I remember.
You should machmer is Krishna.
You know what? I think it's a Bach. I have in my head that the Bach is machmer and a Kli Shlishi. If I'm not mistaken, the Bach brings the uranium. Well, maybe not the uranium, but just the idea that a Kli Shlishi would be the same as a Kli Sheni. If I'm not mistaken, it's the Bach. Okay, so yeah.
When you take something from Kli Rishon,
Yeah.
automatically he's already lose the power of cooking. How can, like you said before, how they still consider Kli Rishon after they put in the plate? Nothing.
Who said it loses the power of cooking when it's out of the Kli Rishon? Maybe it only, one second, maybe it only loses it when it's in the Kli Sheni. I'm saying, you're saying it as soon as it leaves the Kli Rishon. How do you know that? Maybe it's as soon as it leaves the Kli. How do you know that that's enough to make it not able to cook? Maybe it's only in the Kli Sheni that it's cooled down enough not to cook. Kli Rishon, by the way, just for information, is a pot that's on the fire. It's the original pot. Kli Sheni is when you pour it into a different container or cup, so it's cooler and it doesn't have the power to cook. We're talking about on Shabbos. So you're saying maybe if it's out of the Kli Rishon, it doesn't cook, even if it's not yet in the Kli Sheni. You're just saying that.
When I ask you the question, you answer and you say about their opinion, they say that when you take a piece of chicken from Kli Rishon and you put it in the Kli Sheni, still considered like Kli Rishon.
Yeah, and you're saying it's not in the Kli Rishon.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, but it's not in the Kli Sheni either.
Why not?
Because it's not. Because the what? I understand it. One second.
Okay.
It doesn't have the walls of the Kli Rishon anymore, but it doesn't have the walls of the Kli Sheni either. Because it's not touching the walls.
What's up?
I'll tell you. You're onto something, but you're not saying the words. Listen carefully. It's Irui Mikli Rishon. That's exactly what it is. Irui Mikli Rishon. When you pour out of a Kli Rishon, and it's going through the air, it's not in the Kli Rishon anymore. It hasn't hit the Kli Sheni yet. That's called Irui Mikli Rishon. What's the halacha? Does it cook or not? Thank you very much. It cooks kedei klipa. It cooks the depth of a peel. If you pour hot water onto something raw, so it'll cook the surface of it, not all the way in. So a piece of chicken that you take out and you put it on the plate, if it does not have the din of a Kli Sheni, it's a machloket. But if you say it does not have the din of a Kli Sheni, you're right, it's not an actual Kli Rishon anymore, because it's not in the original, but it's rather like an Irui Mikli Rishon. It's like something that's on the way out of the Kli Rishon. It can still cook a klipa, cook a peel's depth. Understand? But that's still a problem. If you put salt on it, if you hold to be machmer about salt, so on the surface it could still cook.
But if you flip the chicken around with a Krishna, up, down. So now what's up?
I don't know. Make a mess. Make a mess.
Make a mess.
If I was the parent at the table, I would tell you to stop right away. Okay, so here's the second opinion of the Gemara. We're talking about adding salt and spices to hot dishes on Shabbos. So here's the second opinion of the Gemara. Some say that Rav Yosef thought to say that salt is like spices, that you cannot put it into a Kli Rishon, into the original pot, because it's going to cook, and a Kli Sheni, it does not cook. So far, it's the same as the last opinion. Abaye says to him, no, listen carefully. We learned in the Brayso of Chia, salt is not like spices. Rather, it does not even cook in a Kli Rishon. Just like Rav Nachman said, salt takes so long to cook, like the meat of an ox. Now notice, according to the first opinion, Rav Chia, which was the Brayso, and Rav Nachman were arguing. Rav Chia says salt cooks very easily, even in a Kli Sheni it cooks. Arguing, and Rav Nachman who says that it's like ox meat. According to the second opinion, no. Rav Chia's Brayso, and Rav Nachman said exactly the same thing. Salt does not cook even in a Kli Rishon. It can only cook on the fire, just like ox meat. Okay, my friends, what is the rule?
Putting the salt in the creation on the fire, you are the basic, correct?
If what, sorry?
You put salt in the creation on the fire.
That's for sure cooking.
But the Nachman doesn't. You're still allowed to eat it.
That's a machlokes. It's machlokes Taz and Magen Avraham. We're going to see. Machlokes Taz and Magen Avraham. Yesh Cholke B'Aros Motzei Shabbos. The Alter Rebbe brings both opinions. Sif Yud Zayin. End of Sif Yud Zayin. End of Yud Zayin. He brings the Taz and the Magen Avraham both. Okay. Listen carefully. What's the rule when the Gemara has two versions of a discussion? Do we follow the first version or the second version?
I think the first we said, right?
Really?
Always is first we said.
Really?
Not sure.
Usually we follow the later one. Usually.
The second?
Chokin is the Taz.
So
First of it is one.
when we take into the first one?
If it's a stam and a yeshomer.
The Yeshua.
Stam and yeshomer. Okay, so here Tosfos says, actually he brings different opinions about what to do when there's two versions of a discussion in the Gemara. Tosfos says that according to Rashi, whenever there's two versions of the Gemara, we don't know what to do. So if it's a Doraisa question, if it's a Torah matter of Torah law, you have to be strict because it's like an unresolved question. If it's a rabbinic matter, then you go by the later one. Let me just make sure I'm getting that right. Give me a moment. Yeah. If it's a rabbinic matter, you go by the later one. In other words, the idea of following the later one, that you can rely on that for a rabbinic matter. For a Torah matter, because it's not clearly resolved, you have to be strict. That's Rashi's opinion. Rabbeinu Tam says, no, it's like a suffix. It's an equal doubt between the two opinions. If it's a Torah matter, you're strict. If it's a rabbinic matter, you're lenient, no matter which opinion is first and second. It's like a toss-up, according to Rabbeinu Tam. And when it comes to toss-ups, on Torah level questions, we're strict. On rabbinic level questions, we're lenient because it's not as strict. Tosfos comes along and says, you know what? In this case, you can be lenient regardless. If you accept what we just said, that when there's two versions of the Gemara, you have to be strict on Torah laws, well, over here you would have to be strict because this is a Torah question about cooking salt. And you can only be lenient if you hold that the last opinion is it, no matter what, Torah level, rabbinic level, no matter what. Tosfos says no, even according to Rashi, and according to Rabbeinu Tam, here you can be lenient. He says, why? Because we always prefer a version that minimizes arguments. Over here, in the second opinion, Rav Nachman is exactly the same as Rav Chia. We don't like to say that an Amoira argues on a Tana. Now, if it does happen, you have to argue, you have to rule like the Tana, like the earlier generations, even the Hilchos Bishul, by the way, we do follow a later opinion that's only within the Amoira, within the Tana, but not from a Tana to an Amoira. When there's an argument between a Mishnah and a later opinion, you have to follow the Mishnah. So I'm sorry? They didn't know it. They didn't know it. But Nachman didn't. You didn't have to know Hebraisa to be a certified Tana. You had to know Moira exactly. Thank you. You had to know every Mishnah. You didn't have to know every Brisa. He didn't know the Brisa. He said what he said. But the point is, according to the second opinion, they're not arguing. They're saying exactly the same thing. So it's more logical that that's the correct opinion. So that's what Tosfos says. Nevertheless, he says, after all, it's not a resolved question. Even though logically you could argue to stick with the opinion that has Rav Chia and Rav Nachman agreeing, rather than going with the opinion that has them disagreeing, it's still not 100%. So a person who's strict gets a bracha. That's what Tosfos says. So again, I'm not really telling you a logical reason for this argument. I'm just telling you the technical way it works in this discussion. Is that there's two versions of the Gemara, and really when there's two versions, there's opinions that say you should be strict on any Torah matter about these versions. Over here, there's reason to say you could be lenient because the lenient version is one that has all opinions agreeing, rather than the other opinion which has arguments. But it's still not clear, Tosfos says. So if a person is strict, he should get a bracha.
Since we're talking about construction of the Gemara,
Yes.
is there a reason why this one doesn't qualify as a teku?
Well, the Gemara doesn't say teku. If the Gemara says teku, it's definitely an unresolved question. When it has two versions, then some say that the very fact that one is put first and one is put second is to tell you that the second one is the main opinion. You understand? So I'm saying it's not, there's different rules when it comes to these things. On the other hand, some say not like that, like we just said. Teku means it's an absolute toss-up. We have no idea. Okay? Let us finish the Sif in the Mechaber, my friends. Ve'im ovar, ve'nasan melech, afilu be'kli rishon, afilu ala eish, shavar isura, mutter hamaychel, hamelech bottle al gabe hamaychel. Listen carefully. A person who added salt to a pot that's on the fire. It's a serious Torah transgression. Talking about salt that was not yet cooked. He adds it to the fire. Not only rabbinic transgression, that it looks like cooking. He's actually cooking the salt. So you would think that the food should be forbidden until after Shabbos, like we said in the past about a person who cooks on Shabbos. He says no. Rama says it's okay. You can eat the food because the salt is nullified to the food.
On Shabbat too, or only after Shabbat?
On Shabbat. After Shabbat for sure.
You know, we said that there's no knas if it's a del raisa. The knas only comes in on violating the derabanans like shehiyah and chazar.
No, the knas applies to both. We've had that in the past. Why do you say that?
That because the rabbanan didn't have to give incentives to not do an iser of skila.
No, that's for b'chdei sheyaseh. That's for after Shabbos to wait extra. But to actually allow a person to benefit from a Torah violation, that we said no. That's how we started this simon. Okay. So salt is what? Why should the salt be nullified? Batal b'shishim? Should the salt be nullified in 60? 1 in 60?
Well, if you already did, now you want to eat it.
That's what we're talking about.
Maybe it's not the minimum quantity in order to transgressions. That's just so low.
Why? Because it's less than 1 in 60? Is that what it is?
Just a small amount. It's like, you get a certain amount of food or material to...
What amount?
To get or something.
No. Gogeret is to get skila, chatas, but it's an isser de rice anyway, even cooking a smaller amount. Yeah.
Kosher.
Yeah.
1 grain of salt.
Yeah. It's chatzi shir. Chatzi shir doesn't mean chatzi dafka. It means whatever.
Do we say Tom Kicker?
What does that have to do with it?
Oh, well, once you have Tom, then there's no batel b'shishim, right? Because it's definitely there.
Oh, so that's what it is. That's the problem. To nullify something in 60 doesn't work if it's milsa da'avida l'time, if it's something that adds a taste. So how do you say it's nullified? So the Magen Avraham says simple, because it's zev v'zeh goyrim. Everybody salts their food before Shabbos. So therefore there was already some salt in it. It wasn't enough salt, so you added some salt. Sorry? Sorry? Yeah, if you was no salt in it before, it would be also for sure. But if you didn't, he calls it zev v'zeh goyrim. This one is causing it, and that's what it's causing it. So why don't you say that it should be asur because it is davar sheish l'matirin, right? Davar sheish l'matirin is not batel even in 1,000 because it already mixes before it becomes asur. It already melts and it mixes in before it becomes asur. However, I do want to point out that the Taz disagrees with all of this, and the Taz says that when do you say zev v'zeh goyrim is mutter if two things cause something else, it's permissible only if it's at the same time. For example, he says, if you take yeast that is an asur kind of yeast, and you take yeast that is a mutter kind of yeast, let's say it's truma and not truma. Yeah, we had it. And you put it together, and it makes it become bread. That's okay, because each one on its own couldn't do it. But over here, you already have the salt from before Shabbos. That's permissible salt. And now what's giving it the salty taste, which is what you want, is only the forbidden salt. That's forbidden, says the Taz. Right now, what is causing the taste is the forbidden salt. So according to the Taz disagrees with this Ramah. All right, my friends, it's been a pleasure learning with you all. I am not going to be here next week. I apologize. Thank you very much. And
Next week
I'm not here. And I must tell you that my wife has us scheduled to go to South Carolina for the total solar eclipse.
That's awesome.
August 21st at 2:08 or so p.m. So it's a very rare occurrence that we should be able to see a total solar eclipse here in the United States. And that opportunity is coming on August 21st, Monday afternoon.
Yeah, I'm flying to Denver to see that.
Nice,
We're going to
nice.
fly up to Wyoming.
Nice. So I don't think I'm going to be here on Monday.
Where's the rabbi going?
A partial eclipse. You'll be able to see a partial eclipse here. But there you'll see a total eclipse.
Yeah, I won't be here also, so that's good for me.
Is it a mitzvah? It's the
You will not see.
Is there a bracha?
One of the wonders of Hashem's creation.
Is there a bracha we would make?
I don't know if there's a bracha on a solar eclipse. I don't think so, because it's like a bad omen. I don't think there's a bracha on it. It's a bad
Yeah,
omen.
the lunar eclipse is usually-
Actually, a lunar eclipse is a bad omen. A solar eclipse is bad for the goyim, it says. It says it's bad for the goyim. Solar eclipse.
is very rare.
Yeah, that's what it says.
The moon is in
Columbia or Charleston?
I don't know. My wife did the planning.
something like that.
Moon's gonna cover the sun?
It's
The
gonna get,
moon is going to cover the sun.
it's gonna
Exactly.
get dark like in the middle of the
This
day, 2 in the
Moon,
afternoon.
sun? For
Sun,
Yeah,
exactly.
this-
We're here. The sun's here. The moon is going to block. And
It's
In the middle of the day, it's going to be dark in the middle of the day. Not dark like night, but dark like twilight. But
And you need special
an interesting thing that I heard on the radio, they said, just totally by the way, you know, the moon has craters on it. So it's called something's beads. The last few seconds of the moon moving into position and the first few seconds of it moving out of positions, you see little beads. It's because it's not a perfect circle. You see little dots on the side of the sun. Those are the moon's craters.
You don't see the craters.
Exactly.
Because the sun's shining so
For a
bright.
few seconds. Anyway, but you need special
It- it-
pass, whatever.
Another interesting fact is that the,
If I travel there, no, you can't look at it otherwise. It could damage your eyes.
another interesting fact is that the theory of relativity was verified using an eclipse, because the light from the stars coming around the sun, the light would bend because of the gravity of the sun. So that's how they verified that.
The light, no, stay. Leave your mind. The light of the sun, sorry, one more time.
This, when the stars, the light of a star comes to us, it comes straight. But if it goes by the edge of the sun, the gravity of the sun will warp the path of the star, so it'll look like it's in a different position. So that's how the theory of relativity was verified, because there's gravitational
Interesting.
effect on light.
Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, but I'm gonna keep you guys posted about the 21st, because I'm not 100% sure that it's happening. I mean, the eclipse is happening.
I'm
not 100% sure if I'm coming.
No bracha said on the solar eclipse.
Interesting.
Because it is a siman ra.
Right. Okay.
So there's no brach.
No bracha.
Okay.
Thank you.
No, the next day I'll be. 22nd I'll be here. 21st I'm not sure, but 22nd I'll be here.
So Tuesday is.
Tuesday is not this coming, the next one.
Oh, okay.
But the Monday I'll be in touch with you, Mr. Shem.
So this coming week,
No,
Monday, Tuesday.
correct.
No class till the 22nd.
No live share from Eric Israel?
No, he's not winning it.
This time not. No, sorry.
Last time I wasn't there, you recorded in December.
Be'orachum.